The cherry blossoms fell like whispered secrets across the courtyard of Hanul University Preparatory Academy, but no one watched them. Every eye fixed on the black sedan pulling through the iron gates. Students gathered along the walkway, phones raised, hearts racing. Chang Min Lee emerged, tall, untouchable, devastatingly calm. His sleeves rolled to reveal a leather bracelet on his wrist. His tie loosened just enough to suggest he owned this world without trying. He walked through the crowd without seeing them, his jaw set, his dark eyes empty of warmth. Then the second car arrived. A girl stepped out, deep brown skin glowing against the gray morning, natural twists pulled back from her face, bright eyes taking in everything with quiet wonder. Gift Daniels, the Nigerian transfer student. She stood still while the world moved around her. And then, across the courtyard, Chang Min Lee stopped walking. He turned. Their eyes met. Something cracked in the silence between them. This is a story about two hearts that were never supposed to collide, and the beautiful chaos that followed when they did. Please like, share, and subscribe. The whispers began before Gift even reached the main building. She felt them like tiny needles against her skin, curious, sharp, assessing. Her scholarship letter had promised opportunity, excellence, a chance to study at one of Korea's most prestigious preparatory academies before university. It had not mentioned the loneliness of being the only African student in a sea of unfamiliar faces. She adjusted the small beaded bracelet on her wrist, her grandmother's gift before she left Lagos, and lifted her chin. She had not traveled halfway across the world to shrink. The administration office smelled like paper and anxiety. A secretary handed her a schedule, a map, and a pitying smile. "Your Korean is very good," the woman said, surprised, lifting her eyebrows. "Thank you," Gift replied. "I studied for 2 years before coming." She did not mention the countless nights, the language apps, the Korean dramas she had watched until the dialogue felt like music she could finally sing. She did not mention how hard she had worked to be here, how much she had sacrificed, how desperately she wanted to belong. The classroom fell silent when she entered. 23 faces turned toward her. 23 expressions ranging from curiosity to confusion to something colder. The teacher, a thin woman with glasses perched on her nose, gestured toward the front. "Class, this is Gift Daniels. She is joining us from Nigeria on academic scholarship. Please make her feel welcome." The silence stretched. Gift felt heat creep up her neck but kept her expression calm. She had learned long ago that showing vulnerability only invited more pain. "There is an empty seat," the teacher continued, pointing toward the back corner. "Next to Chang Min Lee." The whispers exploded. Gift walked down the aisle, keeping her eyes forward, her steps measured. She could feel the weight of attention pressing against her from every direction. And then she saw him. Chang Min Lee sat by the window, his posture relaxed, his face turned toward the gray sky outside. His uniform was immaculate except for those rolled sleeves, that loosened tie. A leather bracelet circled his wrist. He did not look at her as she approached. He did not acknowledge her existence at all. She sat down. The chair scraped against the floor, and still he did not turn. His profile was sharp, defined jaw, straight nose, lips pressed into a neutral line. Beautiful, she thought, then immediately pushed the thought away. Beautiful and cold and clearly uninterested in anything beyond his own world. "Hello," she said quietly. "I am Gift." Nothing. She opened her notebook, telling herself it did not matter. She was here to study, to excel, to make her family proud. Not to seek approval from boys who thought silence was a personality. But she could not help noticing the way his fingers tapped against the desk. The way his breathing shifted just slightly when she spoke. The way he finally, turned his head a fraction of an inch in her direction. Their eyes met for the second time that day. And Gift saw something flicker in those dark depths. Something that looked almost like recognition, like seeing someone familiar in a crowd of strangers. Then he looked away, and the moment shattered. The cafeteria was a battlefield Gift had not prepared for. She stood at the entrance, tray in hand, scanning the room for an empty table. There were none. Every seat seemed claimed by invisible rules she did not understand. Social hierarchies mapped out in seating arrangements, friendships marked by proximity, power measured in laughter and exclusion. A girl approached her, tall, stunning, with perfect makeup and a smile that did not reach her eyes. "You must be the new scholarship student." Gift recognized the tone. She had heard it before, in Lagos, in London during her brief exchange program. Everywhere people decided she did not belong before learning her name. "Yes," she said simply. "I am Gift. I'm Su Min." The girl's smile widened. "Chang Min Lee's close friend. We grew up together." The emphasis was unmistakable. A claim. A warning. Gift felt her stomach tighten but kept her expression pleasant. "It is nice to meet you, Su Min. You should sit with the other international students," Su Min continued, gesturing vaguely toward a corner table where a few students with varying features sat clustered together. "You will be more comfortable there, with people like you." The words hung in the air between them. Gift thought of her grandmother's voice. "Thank you for the suggestion," Gift said, her voice calm. "But I think I will find my own place." She walked past Su Min, heart pounding, and found a small empty spot at the end of a table near the windows. She sat down alone, opened her lunch, and pretended she could not feel the stares burning into her back. She did not see Chang Min Lee watching from across the room. Did not see the way his eyes followed her movement, tracked her isolation, lingered on her face as she ate in silence. Did not see how his jaw tightened when Su Min returned to their table, laughing about the new girl who clearly did not know her place. But she felt something, a prickling awareness at the back of her neck, a strange certainty that she was not as invisible as she pretended to be. Days passed like slow water. Gift settled into a rhythm. Classes, library, dormitory, repeat. She excelled academically, her answers in class sharp and precise. Her essays returned with high marks and surprised comments from professors. She learned which hallways to avoid during peak hours, which bathrooms were safest for quiet moments alone, which corners of the library offered refuge from curious stares. She made one friend, Ji Hai, a quiet girl with kind eyes who sat beside her in literature class and offered her a piece of candy one afternoon without explanation. They began eating lunch together, their conversations starting awkward and growing warmer with each day. "You really studied Korean just to come here?" Ji Hai asked one afternoon, wonder in her voice. Gift smiled. "My father always said education is the door to every opportunity. I wanted to open the biggest door I could find." "Your father sounds wise." "He was." Gift's smile flickered. "He passed 2 years ago." Ji Hai's hand found hers across the table. No words, just presence, just understanding. Gift felt her eyes sting and blinked rapidly, grateful for the silence. She encountered Chang Min Lee again on a Thursday. Rain hammered against the windows of the science building, trapping students inside during the break period. Gift had retreated to a quiet stairwell to review her notes, seeking solitude away from the crowded common areas. She did not expect to find him there. He sat on the stairs above her, back against the wall, eyes closed. His sleeves were rolled as always, his bracelet catching what little light filtered through the gray window. He looked almost peaceful, almost human. She froze, considering retreat. But he must have heard her breathing, because his eyes opened. They stared at each other. "I was just leaving," Gift said quickly, turning. "Wait." The word surprised them both. Gift paused. Chang Min Lee seemed equally uncertain, his brow furrowing as if his own voice had betrayed him. "You." He hesitated. "You answered the question wrong in chemistry today." Gift turned back slowly. "I beg your pardon?" "The question about electron configuration. You said 286 for sulfur. It is 288. "No," Gift said, her surprise shifting to something else. "Sulfur has 16 electrons. 286 is correct." Chang Min Lee blinked. For a moment, his cold mask cracked, revealing something almost embarrassed beneath. "You are right," he said quietly. "I misspoke." Gift felt her lips twitch toward a smile. The famous Chang Min Lee, admitting he was wrong? "I was not." He stopped, looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. You know who I am? Everyone knows who you are. Gift tilted her head. It is impossible not to, with the way people watch you. They do not watch me. They watch what they think I am. The words came out raw, unguarded. Gift saw the flash of vulnerability before he buried it again, his expression smoothing into familiar coldness. I understand that, she said softly. More than you might think. The rain drummed against the window. Chang Min Lee studied her face as if searching for something. Mockery, pity, calculation. Finding none, he looked away. Why did you come here? He asked. To Korea. To this school. Because I wanted to learn. Because I wanted to prove I could. Gift paused. Because I wanted to become someone my father would be proud of. Silence stretched between them. When Chang Min Lee spoke again, his voice was barely audible above the rain. I do not know who I am becoming. Only who everyone expects me to be. Gift felt something shift in her chest. A recognition. A connection she had not anticipated. Maybe, she said carefully, that is something you have to choose for yourself. He looked at her again. And this time, the coldness in his eyes had thawed. Just a little. Just enough. I do not even know your name, he said. I know everyone calls you the Nigerian girl. But I do not know your name. Gift. My name is Gift. Something moved across his face. Almost a smile. Almost something softer. Gift, he repeated. And somehow, in his voice, it sounded like something precious. The encounters multiplied after that. Gift found him in the library, sitting at the table beside hers, pretending to study while his eyes tracked her movements. She passed him in the hallways, and now he nodded. A small acknowledgement that meant nothing to observers but felt monumental between them. He began lingering after class, walking slower, creating moments where their paths might cross. Ji-hai noticed first. He is watching you, she whispered during lunch, her eyes wide. Chang Min Lee. He has been staring at you for 10 minutes. Gift felt heat rise to her cheeks. He is probably looking at something else. Gift. Ji-hai gripped her arm. He has never looked at anyone like that. Not even Su Min, and she has been chasing him since freshman year. Gift risked a glance across the cafeteria. Chang Min Lee sat with his usual crowd, athletes, student council members, the social elite. But his attention was not on them. It was fixed entirely on her. Their eyes met. He did not look away. Gift's heart stuttered. She forced herself to turn back to Ji-hai, to pretend normalcy. But her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her chopsticks. Be careful, Ji-hai said softly. His world is complicated, and the people around him do not like complications. Gift thought of Su Min's cold smile. I know. Do you like him? The question hung in the air. Gift considered lying, deflecting, protecting herself with denial. I do not know him well enough to like him, she said finally. But I want to, and that terrifies me. The project came 2 weeks later. Professor Kim paired them together for the semester's major chemistry assignment. Some cruel twist of fate, or perhaps something more deliberate. Gift saw Su Min's face tighten with fury when the announcement was made. Saw the whispers spread like wildfire through the classroom. Saw Chang Min Lee's expression remain perfectly neutral, betraying nothing. After class, he approached her desk. We should meet to discuss the project, he said, his voice formal. His sleeves were rolled, his bracelet visible against his wrist, his tie slightly loosened. Up close, Gift could see the tiny details she had missed before, the faint shadows beneath his eyes, the almost imperceptible tension in his jaw. Yes, she agreed. When are you available? Friday afternoon. The library? That works. He nodded once and turned to leave, then paused. Gift. Yes. The other students. He struggled with the words. They may say things. About you. About us working together. I want you to know. I am used to people saying things. Gift interrupted gently. I have been the outsider my entire life. Their words cannot hurt me anymore. Chang Min Lee's eyes darkened with something she could not name. They should not have to, he said quietly. You should not have to be used to it. Then he was gone, leaving Gift with a racing heart and the strange sensation of being truly seen for the first time. Friday arrived wrapped in tension. Gift reached the library early, securing a table in the back corner where they might work undisturbed. She spread out her notes, her references, her careful outlines. She tried not to check the door every 30 seconds. Chang Min Lee arrived 10 minutes late, slightly breathless, his hair uncharacteristically disheveled. I apologize, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Practice ran late. It is fine. Gift pushed a folder toward him. I prepared some initial research. He opened it. His eyebrows rose. This is extensive. I like to be thorough. No. He looked up at her. This is more than thorough. This is brilliant. These connections between the molecular structures, I would never have thought of this approach. Gift felt warmth bloom in her chest. Thank you. They worked for 2 hours. At first, conversation stayed safe, limited to chemical bonds and experimental methods, hypotheses and conclusions. But gradually, the walls began to crumble. Why chemistry? Chang Min Lee asked during a break, watching her scribble notes in the margins of her textbook. Because it explains how things connect, Gift said. How different elements can come together and become something entirely new. Something neither could be alone. That sounds like more than science. She smiled. Maybe it is. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. You see meaning everywhere, do you not? In everything. I try to. My grandmother always said life is too short for surfaces. You must dig deeper to find the treasure. Your grandmother sounds wise. She is. Gift's smile softened. She raised me after my mother left. She and my father. They made me who I am. Who are you? Gift Daniels? The question was quiet, intimate. Gift felt the weight of it press against her chest. I am still figuring that out, she admitted. But I know I want to be someone who matters. Someone who leaves the world a little better than I found it. Someone who loves deeply and lives honestly and is not afraid to take up space. That is more than most people know about themselves. What about you? Gift turned the question back. Who is Chang Min Lee? His expression flickered. For a long moment he was silent. I am my father's son, he said finally. Heir to expectations I never asked for. A face people project their dreams onto. A role I play so perfectly that sometimes I forget it is a role at all. And beneath the role? I do not know. His voice cracked slightly. I think I have been performing so long that I lost the original. Gift reached across the table. Her fingers brushed his hand. Just a touch, light as breath. Maybe, she said softly. It is still there. Maybe it just needs someone who wants to find it. Chang Min Lee stared at their almost touching hands. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with something raw and vulnerable and terrifying. You see me, he whispered. I do not understand how, but you see me. I see someone who is lonely, Gift said. Someone who is searching. Someone who deserves more than the prison they have built around themselves. I did not build it. No, but you chose to stay inside. The words landed like stones in still water. Chang Min Lee pulled his hand back slowly, his expression warring between defense and exposure. We should continue working, he said, his voice rough. Gift nodded, understanding. Some doors could only be opened so far before they swung shut again. But the fact that he had opened it at all, that meant something. That meant everything. The rumors started the following Monday. Whispers followed Gift through the halls, sharper than before. She heard fragments, *scholarship student*, seducing him, does not belong, who does she think she is? The stairs felt heavier, weighted with judgment and jealousy. Su Min intercepted her outside the bathroom. I warned you. Her voice dripped with false sweetness. I told you to stay with your own kind. But you did not listen. I have done nothing wrong, Gift said calmly. We are project partners. Nothing more. Do not insult my intelligence. Su Min stepped closer. I see the way he looks at you. I see the way he lights up when you enter a room. He has never—" She stopped, composing herself. "Chang Min Lee belongs to this world, to this life. To me, you are a temporary distraction, a novelty. When he remembers who he is, you will be discarded. And if he does not remember?" Gift heard herself ask. "If he chooses something different?" Su Min's perfect facade cracked. For a moment, Gift saw the fear beneath the cruelty, the desperate insecurity that drove the attacks. "He will not," Su Min hissed. "Because you are not enough. You will never be enough. You are nothing but a poor scholarship girl from a country no one cares about, and no amount of chemistry projects will change that." She stormed away, leaving Gift standing alone in the empty hallway. Gift pressed her back against the wall and breathed. She straightened her shoulders and walked to class. The humiliation came 3 days later. Gift entered the cafeteria to find a crowd gathered near her usual table. Students were laughing, pointing, holding up phones. Ji-hai pushed through the crowd, her face pale. "Gift, do not." But Gift had already seen. Someone had covered her seat with crude drawings. Caricatures of a dark-skinned girl surrounded by mocking labels. Jungle princess, beggar student, go back to Africa. The images were cruel, exaggerated, designed to wound. The cafeteria fell silent as Gift approached. She stared at the drawings. Her hands trembled. Her eyes burned. She felt the weight of every stare, every judgment, every moment she had ever been made to feel less than. "Who did this?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. No one answered. Gift picked up the drawings slowly, methodically. She stacked them neatly, tucked them under her arm, and walked toward the trash bin. The crowd parted for her. She disposed of the papers without ceremony, then turned. "I am not ashamed of who I am," she said, her voice carrying across the silent room. "I am not ashamed of where I come from. My skin, my heritage, my history, these are not insults. They are not weaknesses. They are my strength." Tears slipped down her cheeks despite her best efforts, but she did not wipe them away. Let them see. Let them know that pain did not mean defeat. "You can mock me. You can exclude me. You can try to make me feel small. But I have survived worse than your cruelty. I have lost my father. I have left my home. I have walked into spaces that never wanted me and made them my own. And I will do it again, every single day, until you understand that I belong wherever I choose to be." She turned and walked out of the cafeteria. She made it to the stairwell before her legs gave out. She collapsed onto the cold steps, and the sobs finally broke free, ugly, gasping, uncontrollable. She buried her face in her knees and wept for her father, her grandmother, her loneliness, her exhaustion. She did not hear the footsteps until he was already beside her. Chang Min Lee knelt on the stairs, his face tight with fury and something else, something that looked like anguish. "Gift, please go away." Her voice was muffled. "Please do not see me like this. I cannot." He sat down beside her, close enough that she felt his warmth. "I cannot walk away from you. I have tried. For weeks, I have tried to stay distant, to protect you from my world, to pretend that you have not completely destroyed every wall I ever built." Gift lifted her head. His face was inches from hers. His eyes glistened. "I did not know," he said hoarsely. "I did not know they were planning this. If I had, it does not matter. It matters." His hand found hers, gripping tight. "It matters more than anything. Gift, I am so sorry. For every cruelty this school has shown you. For every time I should have spoken up and stayed silent. For every moment I let fear of my own reputation stop me from protecting the one person who has ever made me feel real." Gift stared at him through her tears. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I notice you. I notice everything about you. The way you laugh when something surprises you. The way you tilt your head when you are thinking. The way you talk about your grandmother like she hung the stars. The way you refuse to let the world dim your light, no matter how hard it tries." He lifted his other hand to her face, brushing the tears from her cheek with trembling fingers. I am saying that I do not care what anyone thinks anymore. I do not care about expectations or reputations or the prison I have built around myself. I only care about you, about this, about whatever this impossible thing is between us. Chang Min. I know it is complicated. I know my world is cruel and my future is mapped out by people who do not care what I want. But when I am with you, none of that exists. There is only you, seeing me, knowing me, making me want to be someone worth knowing. Gift's heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. I am scared, she whispered. I am scared of wanting something this much, of losing it. So am I. His forehead rested against hers. But I am more scared of never trying, of watching you walk away and wondering what we could have been. What do we do? I do not know. His breath was warm against her lips. But maybe we figure it out together. She kissed him. It was soft, hesitant, a question more than a statement. His hand slid into her hair, pulling her closer, and the question became an answer. They kissed until the tears dried on her cheeks, until the world outside the stairwell ceased to exist, until there was only this, two hearts finally choosing each other. When they broke apart, Gift was trembling. Your friends will never accept this, she said. Su Min. Su Min will have to learn that she never had a claim on my heart. Chang Min Lee's jaw tightened. My friends will adapt or they will not be my friends. I am done living for other people's approval. And your family? Will be furious. He almost smiled. My father expects a strategic marriage, alliances built on wealth and status. He did not plan for a brilliant Nigerian girl with fire in her soul. That sounds like a significant problem. I have never wanted to cause problems before. His eyes met hers. I think maybe I am ready to start. The weeks that followed were beautiful and brutal. Chang Min Lee sat with Gift at lunch, his presence a shield against open hostility. He walked her to classes, helped her with projects, found excuses to linger in her orbit. The whispers did not stop, but they shifted, curiosity replacing some of the cruelty, confusion mixing with judgment. Su Min's attacks became more subtle but no less vicious. Exclusions from group projects. Rumors planted carefully in the right ears. Photographs taken from unflattering angles, circulated with cutting comments. But Gift was no longer alone. Ji-hai stood firm beside her. Other students, drawn by curiosity or admiration, began sitting at their table. The isolation cracked, letting light through. And Chang Min Lee, who held her hand under the table when he thought no one was watching, who texted her late at night when the world was quiet, sharing thoughts he had never spoken aloud, who looked at her like she was the first beautiful thing he had ever truly seen. Tell me about Lagos, he said one evening, sitting with her on the library rooftop, watching the sunset paint the sky. Gift smiled. It is loud, chaotic, full of traffic and music and people selling everything you could imagine. The air smells like exhaust and pepper soup and the ocean. It is overwhelming and exhausting and completely alive. You miss it. Every day. She leaned against his shoulder. But missing something does not mean you regret leaving. I miss my grandmother. I miss hearing Yoruba on every corner. I miss the way the rain sounds on tin roofs. But I am glad I came here. I am glad I met you. Chang Min Lee pressed his lips to her hair. I have never been anywhere but Korea. My entire world is this city, this school, the future my father designed for me. Where would you go? If you could go anywhere. I do not know. He considered the question. Somewhere no one knows my name. Somewhere I could be no one and discover who that is. You are not no one. Gift lifted her head to look at him. You are kind beneath the coldness. You are thoughtful when you let yourself be. You are so much more than your name or your family's expectations. You see things in me that I cannot find in myself. Then maybe I will keep seeing them until you can. He kissed her. Slow, deep, full of everything he struggled to say aloud. The city glittered below them, and for a moment, anything felt possible. The breaking point came on a Thursday. Gift arrived at school to find her locker vandalized. Slurs scratched into the metal. Her books scattered across the floor. A crowd had gathered, phones recording, faces gleaming with anticipation. She bent to gather her things, hands steady despite the shaking inside. Need help? She looked up. Chang Min Lee stood above her, his face tight with barely controlled rage. He knelt beside her, picking up her chemistry textbook, her literature notes, her grandmother's photograph that she kept tucked inside her planner. "You do not have to," she started. "I know." His voice was quiet. "I want to." The crowd fell silent. Chang Min Lee, perfect, untouchable Chang Min Lee, was kneeling on the floor, helping the scholarship girl pick up her scattered belongings. Su Min pushed through the crowd, her face twisted with fury. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "You are embarrassing yourself. Embarrassing all of us." Chang Min Lee stood slowly, Gift's books in his arms. "I am not embarrassed. She is not one of us. She does not belong here. She belongs wherever she wants to be." His voice carried across the silent hallway. "And if you cannot accept that, then perhaps you are the one who does not belong in my life." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Chang Min Lee turned to Gift. "Come on," he said gently. "Let me walk you to class." They walked through the crowd together, his hand finding hers, fingers intertwining. Gift felt the eyes on them. Shocked, confused, some even softening into something like respect. Behind them, Su Min's voice rose in protest. But it did not matter anymore. None of it mattered. The confrontation with his family came 2 weeks later. Gift did not know the details. Only that Chang Min Lee arrived at school one morning with shadows under his eyes and tension in every line of his body. "What happened?" she asked, pulling him into the empty stairwell that had become their sanctuary. "My father knows." His voice was hollow. "About us. About everything. He told me I have to end it or face consequences." "What kind of consequences?" "Disinheritance. Being cut off from the family business. Losing everything I was raised to become." Gift felt the blood drain from her face. "Chang Min. He does not understand." His hands gripped hers desperately. "He thinks this is rebellion. A phase. He thinks I am throwing away my future for what?" Gift's voice was small. "For me. He called you a distraction." The words came out bitter. "A temporary fascination. He said I would forget you in a month if I just let you go." Gift pulled her hands away slowly. The familiar cold of loneliness crept back into her chest. "Maybe he is right," she whispered. "What?" "Maybe I am a distraction. Maybe I am keeping you from your future, from everything you are supposed to become. Maybe." "No." Chang Min Lee caught her face in his hands. "No. You are not a distraction. You are the only real thing in my life. The only thing I have ever chosen for myself. But your family will learn to accept my choices or will lose me entirely." His eyes burned with intensity. "Gift, I have spent my entire life being what everyone else wanted. Perfect son, perfect student, perfect heir. I am so tired. I am so tired of being perfect and feeling empty." Tears slipped down Gift's cheeks. "I do not want to be the reason you lose everything. You are the reason I am finding everything." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Do you understand? Before you I was surviving, going through motions, performing a life that was not mine. You made me want more. You made me believe I could have more. What if it is not enough? What if we try and fail and everything falls apart? Then at least we tried. At least we chose each other when it mattered." His thumb brushed away her tears. "Gift, I am asking you to stay. Not because I can promise you an easy path, but because I cannot imagine walking any path without you." She kissed him, hard and desperate and full of every fear and hope tangled together. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her close, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a spinning world. "I will stay," she whispered against his lips. "For as long as you want me. Forever, then." His voice cracked. "I want you forever." The months that followed reshaped both their worlds. Chang Min Lee's father remained cold and distant, But his mother, quiet, observant, began softening. She requested a meeting with Gift, sitting across from her in a pristine tea room, studying her with curious eyes. "My son has changed," she said. "He smiles now. Real smiles, not the practiced ones. He speaks about his dreams instead of his duties." Gift held the older woman's gaze. "I only want him to be happy. That is what I want as well." His mother's expression flickered with something like approval. "Perhaps we have more in common than I expected." At school, the social dynamics shifted gradually. Chang Min Lee's public devotion to Gift forced others to reassess their assumptions. Some students approached her with genuine interest. Others maintained their distance. Su Min eventually transferred to another academy, unable to bear the visible reminder of her failure. Gift excelled academically, earning recognition not just as a scholarship student but as one of the top performers in her class. Her professors recommended her for prestigious summer programs. Her grandmother cried with joy during their video calls, seeing her Gift flourishing in a world so far from home. And through it all, Chang Min Lee remained beside her. They studied together in the library, their fingers intertwined over textbooks. They explored Seoul on weekends, discovering hidden coffee shops and quiet parks and rooftops where the city sparkled beneath them. They argued about literature and laughed about chemistry experiments and held each other through moments of homesickness and doubt. One evening, as spring arrived and cherry blossoms drifted across the campus like pink snow, Chang Min Lee led Gift to the courtyard where they had first seen each other. "This is where it started," he said quietly. Gift remembered the crowds, the whispers, the black sedan. The moment his eyes had found hers across the distance. "I knew then," he continued. "I did not understand it, but I knew. Something shifted when I saw you, like the world rearranged itself. You did not even look at me in class. I was terrified." He laughed softly. "You were everything I had been trained to resist. Everything that did not fit into my carefully planned life. And you were so beautiful, so bright, so completely yourself. I did not know how to exist near you." Gift stepped closer, sliding her arms around his waist. "And now I do not know how to exist without you." The cherry blossoms fell around them, soft and silent. Chang Min Lee cupped her face in his hands, his eyes full of everything words could never capture. "I love you, Gift Daniels. I love your strength and your softness and your stubbornness. I love the way you see the world and the way you see me. I love every part of you that others tried to make you ashamed of." Gift's heart swelled until she thought it might burst. "I love you too," she whispered. "I love the boy who pretended not to see me and the man who refuses to look away. I love your courage and your vulnerability and your beautiful, stubborn heart." He kissed her beneath the falling blossoms, and Gift finally understood what her grandmother had always told her. Love finds you when you stop looking. When you stop trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. When you stand firm in who you are and wait for someone brave enough to meet you there. She had found her person, her home, her heart, and she would never let go. Years later, Gift would tell this story to her children. How she traveled across the world seeking education and found love instead. How a cold boy in a prestigious school saw through her armor to the fire beneath. How they fought for each other against expectations and prejudice and fear. She would show them photographs. Their graduation day, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. Their wedding, her grandmother beaming in the front row. Their home, filled with books and music and laughter. Chang Min Lee would add his own details. How terrified he had been. How she had saved him from a life of performance and emptiness. How every day with her felt like choosing freedom. And their children would listen, wide-eyed, understanding that love was not about fitting into someone else's story. It was about writing your own. Together. Thank you for staying until the very end of this story. If it moved you, if it stirred something deep and true, if it reminded you that love is worth every risk and every wound and every moment of standing in the rain without certainty, then please like, share, and subscribe.